All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Living the Dream podcast. Today on the show, we have Heather Forrester, who is a manifestation business strategist. Heather, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Of course, thanks for coming on the show. And we like to jump right in. So if you could start with just telling us a little bit more about yourself and what you like to do for fun, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I basically eat, sleep, and breathe the work that I do just because there's a lot of personal development and healing that goes into the work that I do. So I spend majority of my time working just on self-discovery, spending time with the universe, connecting to my spirit guides, things of this nature. That's kind of like what I'm all about.
Yeah.
And then I also have a daughter that's 3 years old. She'll be 4 this year. So she keeps me busy. And I have a boyfriend. Well, I'm actually recently engaged. So these things keep me busy. My
Congratulations.
my family keeps me busy, and then my work. So these are the things that are the most important to me, is just spending time with my loved ones, and I take care of my mom. So all of those things, like, that's really my main focus, and I have a lot of fun doing it. I enjoy it. I really pride myself on the fact that I've kind of created a reality or experience that I can truly just genuinely appreciate and enjoy. And so it's a lot of fun, and I just enjoy every day just being able to be present.
Yeah. Yeah, there we go. So how did you start on the journey of, self-discovery and doing all of that work?
Yeah. So for me, it was back-to-back series of kind of traumatic events, not to be a Debbie Downer, but that's just the truth. That was my story. So I have always been an entrepreneur. And right when so I've had two businesses over the past decade. And so the first business that I had, about 2 weeks after I opened my doors, my father passed away unexpectedly. And my father was my hero. He was my best friend. He was everything. And at that time, me and my mother didn't have a good relationship. So he was really all that I had. And I had just recently gotten married, and I hadn't even had my daughter yet. So it was a really scary time for me because I hadn't been married that long. He was really all I had. But I pushed through. My business was still successful, even though that was really hard for me. And I had a lot of emotional turmoil from it. And then I decided to have a baby because I always wanted to be a mother, but that kind of sped that process up because there was just like this whole, like, this longing for, that extra love or whatever. And so that kind of sped that process up. I got pregnant, and not long after I got pregnant, things really went kind of crazy in my marriage. And I kind of found out a lot about the person I was married to that I didn't know. And so we ended up separating. It was pretty traumatic. It kind of felt like I was like married to a stranger, and I was already really young. I'm still pretty young. I'm only 25. So I was really young when I was going through all of this, and it was all back to back. And so what happened with that divorce, it kind of woke me up to the fact that I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted. I was pretty naive. I didn't know how to pick the right experiences. I wasn't cautious. And I started to question the fact, like, I think maybe I'm putting myself in these situations because for so long, if anything bad happened to me, like in a relationship or like with my dad's death, I'd be like, God hates me, or like the universe is out to get me. Like, it was a very victim mentality that I had for so long. And so after my divorce, I started to kind of question, like, what's my responsibility in making this happen? And so that's really, that question really kind of woke me up. Along with, was struggling with addiction, nothing major, but like I was smoking marijuana like every 20 minutes because like I was just so, riddled with stress and anxiety and emotional discomfort, that being high on marijuana was the only thing that like relieved that for even just a moment. So that was really taking a toll on my health, not only the stress, but my coping mechanisms for the stress. I was just, sweeping it under the rug, using all the distractions, running away from all of my problems. And my heart was actually beginning to have some issues, and my body was starting to shut down. And it was in these moments of like where I felt like I might die, and my daughter wasn't even 1 year old. I had like this really loud voice that I attribute to like maybe my father in the spirit realm or like the universe. And I heard this voice, and it was like, your daughter's going to watch you die if you don't make a change.
Mm.
And there was just something in that was like the pivotal moment for me when I realized, like, well, what can I do? You know what I mean? Like, they presented it to me as if I had some choice in this. So that's when I started to look at things as if maybe things are my responsibility. Maybe I'm creating these things. And so I just started to look at, like, why am I being treated this way? Why am I attracting the toxic people that I'm attracting? Like, it wasn't even just lovers, it was friends too. You know, like, everybody was they were taking advantage of me because I was kind of that pushover, right? I didn't question things. I didn't doubt things. I was just kind of showing up, and I was just being whatever anybody wanted me to be. And I did. So like I said, that led me to attracting people who would take advantage of that. I didn't know who I was. And so finally, like, this breaking point where I was just so stressed and sad and depressed and anxious. And now I had a daughter, so I had really no choice but to kind of figure my stuff out, you know. At least that's how I felt. Thankfully, I took it that way instead of like the alternative of just going worse, you know, or letting myself fall worse. But that's kind of how I got here. As I went through all that trauma, and I finally kind of discovered, like, maybe I have more control, maybe I have more responsibility in my reality and what I'm creating than I had led myself to believe for the previous years of my life. So kind of helped me take self-control. I started to dive into meditation, which helped me kind of expand and understand the world of self-love and what that actually meant, because that's like a pretty broad concept. You know, I think most people might hear self-love and they're like, oh, you do self-care, right? You might go to the spa, or you might, you know, spoil yourself or something. But to me, what I discovered was self-love is actually not really any of those things. Self-love is when you look at all of the parts of yourself that you hate or dismiss or judge, and you start to fall in love with those parts of you, the parts that are not easy to love. And so that way you've got you no matter what. And so it was just that journey, which led me to actually, for the first few years of my coaching career, to be a trauma coach. So I've spent a lot of years just teaching trauma healing, because that's kind of what led me here. But what that's ultimately done is helped me really step into my powers as a master manifester. And the fact that I've always been an entrepreneur, I know the strategy, like, I know how to build a brand, I know how to run ads, I know how to do all the business stuff, in like the tangible business stuff, but I also know what it takes internally to run a business, to scale a business, to grow a business, to create a business, because I've done it over and over again. And to not only do that, but do that while you're manifesting your dream car or your dream romance or whatever, right? Like, so it's like that full circle. So that's kind of what's led me to the evolution into a manifestation business strategist and intuitive healer.
Wow. And you're 25?
I'm 25. I'll be 26 next month, but yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense. No.
I know. I got like a few more months, right? Like, I know people don't understand. Like, people are always like, what? Like, even my clients, like, I work with clients. I don't think I have any clients my age. I think they're all 30 and older, like between 30 and in their 50s, like mid 50s. And so, like, they will be in my sessions or whatever. And it's just so funny. They're like, they always forget. They forget how old I am. And they're just like, I don't even know. It doesn't matter. Like, they just blows their mind how much. But I tell them, like, I've lived probably at least 1,000 lives before this. So this one was just kind of on crack. I just had to wake up really quickly just so I could get my stuff done. I'm on a mission here.
Yeah. Yeah. I got you. Yeah. That's a lot to experience by 25.
Yeah, it is.
So first business was 10 years ago. So then you would have been 15. And
Well, it's just within this past decade. So I had been a hairdresser for 7 years, and I had had my salon for 3 years. And so being a business owner, I'm probably right at, I was 19. So I was 19. So 7 years, 6 years.
yeah, gotcha.
Something like that. So it wasn't a full decade, but it's easier to just kind of like because I was in school. I've been in school since I was 14. Like, I had trade services in my high school option. So, like, I started the process of getting my cosmetology license while I was in high school. And then I graduated high school early and got my license to be a hairdresser by the time I was 17. So, and then not long after, I worked for someone else for maybe a year. And then I started booth renting, which is like a mini, like basically you're paying rent at some place and you have to take care of your own business. So
Yeah, it's kind
you're
of like being a
considered,
realtor.
yeah, you're considered a business owner when you're in that point. So I've been a business owner since I was 18, but I opened my very own salon where I was having employees myself by the time I just turned 20. So
That's epic.
yeah. So I'm a quick manifester. Like that's what I'm saying. Like I didn't realize my power, right? Like it was the trauma and then the teaching of the trauma. And then it all just kind of evolved to like, these are your powers. These are what you're really good at. Like when you want something, you're very clear, you know how to speak to the universe and you make it happen. And there's a lot that goes into that. So, and that's like my passion. Like now that I've understood that for myself and now that I know how to articulate like the process of it, that's what I enjoy the most. And of course there's trauma healing in it, whether you want to call it trauma or not, but like because trauma is just, it evolves into limitations, right? Like it evolves into whatever you have to get over to show up on this podcast or to show up on video or to open the doors to your business, right? Like that is created from trauma, whether it's societal trauma that, you look in the magazines and you see successful people and you don't know that you can make that, right? Like these these standards can be societal trauma, right? But people don't always relate it to trauma, but it's still these things that society or your parents or your caregivers place on your mind that limit you and tell you, oh, you can't do this without this. So you can't do this without making sacrifices, or, that only happens for other people, not like people like us. You know what I mean? Like, and so you get all these limitations or these blindfolds on your abilities or on your limitless potential throughout your life, whether you've been through extreme trauma like abuse or car wrecks or whatever that really plays a part on the psyche, or it's just people talking and you believing it, right? Like that either one can create these limitations that you're going to have to work through in order to create success, which I'm sure you as a podcast host probably have had to do some of your own things, like to get through to where you're like, hey, I'm going to show up on video. Hey, I'm going to use my voice. I'm going to use my gifts. This is what I want to do. Right. Like like we all have to get there to move to the next step, to have any type of experiences of visibility or being shown. So.
Yeah, I love it. Well, there we go. We've kind of heard a little bit about your motivation in your story, but if you had to put it in a couple sentences, what really gets you up and keeps you going every day?
So my motivation is, it's funny. You asked me what my motivation was and what my dream were, and what my dream was, my biggest dream. And so they kind of go hand in hand, or they're maybe the same things, right? So when I was so low, right, when I was in this victim mentality and when the light bulb went off, when the wires clicked together and I just realized like how much control I had over my life, I realized that it was my mission, or it felt like my life's work, because it was my life work first. And now it feels like my life work just for other people, to place a mirror in front of them and show them that they don't have to settle for their circumstances ever, no matter how bad they are, or no matter what they believe they can't do. They do not have to settle for their circumstances. And they are unlimited beings. They're able to create anything. And it's my motivation and my dream. I mean, aside from like my daughter and wanting her to make sure, like first, it's like, I want to do this for myself, right? Like I want to prove to myself and I want to show up for myself. Like I can do anything I set my mind to. And then like that, I want to model for my daughter, right? These are my first set. But then why am I going to hold all that knowledge and this know-how to myself? Like I would love, like, and I love teaching. Like as a child, I always wanted to be a teacher, but not like a school teacher. Like anything I was interested in, I was like, I want to learn how to do that. And then I want to teach people how to do it. Like it was crazy. Like I wanted to do that with hair. I wanted to do that as a pharmacist. Like I always wanted to be the teacher of the thing.
Yeah.
And so like that, and I'm a good storyteller. So like putting this all together into a career where I am just teaching people how to unlock their own gifts and show them that they don't have to settle for their circumstances, no matter where they've came from, like where they're at or where they've been or what they've experienced, because that's what I know to be true. And I believe like I have so much certainty and confidence in my experience and what we're capable of as human beings, that I hold that mirror firmly for other people to just get it done, to make it happen so they can live their dream life. And because I never thought that I could. So the fact that I figured that out for myself and have genuinely and continue, right? It's a continued effort, right? It's not one of those things, oh, you healed your trauma, oh, you manifested, blah, 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 and you're done, right? It's just a continuation of finding a lifestyle that you want to continue doing that work in,
Yeah.
right? And so like it's me helping my clients get to a place where, or just in general, anybody who crosses my path, I hope to show them like, hey, you can get to a place where the lifestyle is exactly the way you want it to be while you're creating everything that you want, and you don't have to hustle, you don't have to stress. You can literally be present in the moment while you're moving forward and checking off your accomplishments and whatnot, right? So I hope that makes sense. But like that's kind of my motivation and my dream, is to just show people their limitless potential, and so that they don't have to feel stuck, like they're being controlled, or that they can't have the job that they want, or they can't create the family that they want, or whatever it is, because I was there for so long. And, you know, it's one of those things like, I don't wish that state of mind or that state of being on anyone. Now, of course, you can't help people who aren't ready to be helped. And sometimes it takes that moment for them to wake up like it did for me. But that's who I'm here for. I'm here for the ones who kind of got hit with that bag of like, wake up and don't know where to go. And so like, that I'm kind of like that gap filler for, it's like, okay, you're awake, you know, like, but you don't know what to do. You know, like this is not this, you know, you're meant for more, and you know that this is not all you're capable of, and you are ready to fill that gap, and you want the tools, the stepping stones, the processes to unlock your own decision-making skills, your own intuitive abilities, your own unique gifts, so that you can find a way to channel that uniqueness about you as an individual into a way where you're going to create an overflow of abundance consistently and live a life that you enjoy.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about it now for about 19 minutes, 20 minutes. Tell us a bit about how to manifest.
So there are three things like there. So it's like I said, it's a lot that goes into it, but there are three main things that I talk about a lot when I make content. So the first thing, and there's no particular order. Sometimes this order can be, you know, whatever, but these are the three kind of ingredients. So in order to manifest, I find the more clarity you have, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but the more clarity you have about the direction you want to go in and a realistic plan for getting there. Because I know for me, I'm a big dreamer, right? Like, oh, I want a TV show, or I want to be on public stages or whatever, right? Like I want all these big things, but like, what's the stepping stones that are going to get me there? And how can I focus on what I have the capacity to focus on right now? Because I can know the big dream, but if I don't have like the plan in place that I can realistically achieve those things, then I'm just going to be throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something sticks without that clarity or that process. So again, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Like there's one part to this equation is trusting the universe to show you the way, right? Is like surrendering, stepping back, letting go of control, and allowing yourself to just be shown by your spirit guides or your higher self or your intuition what direction to take, where to turn the wheel, because you're not going to know everything. You're not going to be able to see behind every door. So just being able to kind of trust the unknown and having a really deep connection to that higher power or that omniscient consciousness, so that way you can kind of step into your own power of knowing the unknown. And it's just through like these feelings, right? You'll start, the more connected you are to your intuition, the more connected you are to your like higher self or like bigger realms that are bigger than you, then you kind of get an idea, oh, should I take this opportunity? Yes or no. And you have a feeling, or should I go on this date? Right? Like you kind of know the more connected you are to your intuition, and it's not, psychic, I would call it maybe psychic powers, but like people have like a misconception, I believe, about psychic powers. It's not like you can see what's going to happen. It's just you have a feeling of whether it's going to be right for you or not, because you're so connected to that gut wisdom, that gut feeling. And you don't dismiss yourself, because that's where I was. Like I was not connected to my intuition, and I would dismiss myself if I was uncomfortable. I would be like, no, I would give too much credit for people that I didn't know, right? And I would put myself in situations that I didn't need to be in. And had I just been connected to that intuition or to that unknown, I could have just trusted myself and saved myself a lot of grief, you know?
Mm.
So those are two things, is having a lot of clarity and just being able to kind of step back and trust that you have like an unknown higher power that can guide you and show you the easiest way to flow into these things. And then the final thing is what we've talked about a little bit, is uncovering those limitations, right? The things that scare you the most, your fears, your insecurities, your doubts, and working with those things, right? We don't want to fake it till we make it. We don't want to replace our negative programming with some BS affirmations, right? Affirmations help, but if you don't get to the root of the CD playing in your mind, that affirmation is going to be rejected over and over and over again. So if you don't face those fears, if you don't look those insecurities or those doubts in the face and assess them, right? Like, what's the risk here? How true is this? What do I need to do to help myself feel more comfortable so that I can show up over and over again? Because what I find is if we fake it till we make it, or we sweep this uncomfortability or resistance under the rug, sometimes it works. Sometimes people show up, sometimes people make money. But what I find, and I found this with clients and I found this with mentors of my own, they're using that fake it till you make it method, or that brush it under the rug. And then every so long, everything crumbles. They lose everything. They stop getting the clients. They stop attracting whatever they need to grow the business, right? These patterns just keep coming up because the universe is trying to say, hey, you're not going to reach your fullest potential until you deal with this insecurity, until you accept it, until you embrace it, until you learn from it. Because what I have found from my own trauma healing is that all my fears, doubts, and insecurities had a message or a lesson for me to learn, so that I didn't put myself in bad situations, or that I could keep myself safe. You know what I mean? Like, they were all trying to teach me something. They were all trying to protect me. And until I faced that uncomfortable little monster inside of my mind, I would never have learned those lessons. I would have never gotten the message, because what I also found is the message had the solution that was going to help me move forward without screwing myself over or losing everything or making things rough or crumble, right? So it was Rummy. I don't know if you guys know who Rummy is. Maybe some of you do, but Rummy said the answer or the solution to the pain is in the pain. So therefore, your solution to your problems are in your problems. If you just keep ignoring or taking action, while you're scared or whatever, right? Like, yes, to a degree, you should just take action when it's uncomfortable, because it's always going to be a little bit uncomfortable. But if you face those fears and you have a friendship or like a connection to those fears, you're doing it aware. You're doing it aware of your risks. You're doing it, you know what I mean? Like, you can talk yourself over the ledge, so without feeling like you're jumping into the abyss of the unknown. You kind of have already accepted the risk behind you going for your biggest dreams, because extraordinary results, extraordinary accomplishments require extraordinary work and extraordinary ways to show up. Like, it's never going to be. So if you want to be extremely successful, you have to be willing to fail extremely extremely fail first. You know, you cannot be, every master was first a mess. And so you cannot go to the other side. There's a picture that I've been talking about it because it resonated so much with me. And it was a picture of a tree, and it said, a tree cannot grow to heaven without first letting its roots grow to hell. And it's just so true, because you cannot move to the other side of all of these amazing things without first going into the darkness. And I mean, that's what I have found to be true for myself and from my mentor, like the best mentors that I've ever had. Like, they're not afraid to step into their unknown or their uncomfortability. So in summary, you know, as much clarity as you can, realistic clarity as you can on your direction, surrendering to the unknown, allowing yourself to be guided by your intuitive or higher abilities, and facing those uncomfortable limitations, doing the things that we instinctively want to avoid, because on the other side of that uncomfortability is your growth. So.
I like that you said that. I've been reading The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind recently.
Yeah.
And he talks about addressing those limiting beliefs in the framework of money.
Yes.
And I saw how you kind of addressed a lot of the stuff he was talking about. So
Really?
he hasn't gotten to the clarity and the realistic plan yet. Trust of the unknown. Not quite, but this uncovering those limitations was really the first part of the book. And he
Yeah,
says, first you have to be aware of it, which is a point
right.
you touched on.
You have to identify it.
Then you have to understand it, which is
Yep.
also a part you touched on. You can't just
Yes.
neglect it. You have to build a relationship with it.
Yes.
And then there's the dissociation from it. And really, you described it as getting curious. He said, ask questions about, like, is this something that still serves me? Do I want to continue to
Is
identify
this
with this?
true, right?
Yeah,
Because
is this true?
sometimes you can dismiss a limitation if it's not even true, if you are just making it up in your mind. But like sometimes I've had limitations, right? Like as somebody who wants to be a public speaker, but I talk about things that I know are going to rattle some people's perceptions or beliefs. That can be a dangerous game to play, right? Like
Yeah.
I was like, I had a vision of like a Martin Luther King Jr. situation where I'm like being executed for talking my truth. You know what I'm saying? Like that is a genuine risk that you take when you become extremely visible, especially when you're going to challenge the government or
Yep.
the religion or anything like this. When you're going to challenge people's perception and what they're comfortable with, it can be a scary game to play. And I don't know if you guys have seen the world recently, but it's genuine. So sometimes your beliefs or your limitations might just be not like you might be able to dismiss them and overcome them by just simply asking, is it true? But when sometimes they're deeper, sometimes there is like some real truth behind, and then you have to assess that risk. So it's made me like be more cautious about what opportunities I take. I'm not just going to speak anywhere, right? Especially as someone who's new, as someone who doesn't have a lot of protection. You know what I'm saying? Like I've assessed some of these limitations and it's helped me keep me safe. It's helped me protect myself. But if I would have never addressed that, that might have scared me enough to not even be here with you today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So limitations can be big. Sometimes they can just be dismissed with a simple, is this true? Or sometimes they really need like something in place to keep you safe so that you can genuinely move forward without sacrificing your life or putting yourself into imminent danger. So it's very important to identify them, and everyone has them. You know, you can sit here and say consciously you feel like a bad bee and you've got like everything put together, you've got all the confidence, but underneath your ego there's real genuine like these fears, insecurities, and that's where real courage comes from, is facing those things and just taking the time to get curious about who you are, what are you really afraid of, and just allowing yourself to be in that vulnerable place. It's not like you have to do it with some sort of stranger. I mean, it can be easier to identify those things with a mentor, because sometimes, like, let's say me and you are having a session, right, and you said, okay, these are my goals, and then we worked on those goals for a couple of weeks. I gave you the strategies, I gave you the tangible steps you could take. But here's 2 weeks later, you haven't shown up. I'm going to ask you the questions that are going to help you identify what that block is, right? Because I'm going to hear your words, right? Because that's what mentors have done for me, right? For so long, I was like, I can't manifest an overflow. I didn't even realize I was saying that. They were like, did you hear what you just said? And I was like, oh, it's like sometimes you don't even know that you're putting limitations on yourself until you're in the situation of like, well, I'm showing up, I'm doing the work, I'm working really hard, but I'm not making this happen. And it's like sometimes just that admitting or that explanation of how you're feeling, it's going to lead you to the real limitation that's blocking you. And
Yeah.
sometimes the mentor, having a trusted mentor, can be the reason you identify it quickly and move forward, right? Because as soon as she told me that, it all the wires clicked and I was like, oh no, that's never going to happen again. And I was able to make that big shift, and it's gotten me to where I am today. You know what I'm saying? So limitations, that's the tricky part with it. It can be really hard for you yourself to identify it, especially because if you are a confident person, you don't want to be critic. You don't want to, it can be hard to admit you have faults or, insecurities. It can be hard sometimes, even if you're not a confident person. Sometimes it can be really uncomfortable to admit it or admit that, so that's where I find my clients get the best results, is when they're willing to just be like upfront with like how they're feeling. The more honest they are, the more they're telling me why they really think that this isn't working, the quicker I move them forward. Right.
Yeah.
Because I can kind of mirror that, like, hey, this is what I'm hearing. How does that feel? Let's work through that. Let's get curious, right? Like all the things that you're saying. And then we just continue on.
Yeah. I like that a lot. I think when people hear manifesting, or they hear there are buzzwords out there.
Right.
They
Right.
can get really intimidated,
Yeah.
but I like it when people come on the show and they really break it down of like it is like you actually have the power and you just need to get
Yeah.
to know yourself.
Literally.
Like the other thing.
Have you ever seen the Ace Ventura whatever, like the Bruce Almighty? Have you ever seen the
Oh
movie
yeah,
Bruce
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Almighty?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I suggest you guys watch it again because it is a wonderful depiction of the unknown and the inner power that we all carry that we were born with. We were born with like it's my belief, of course, that we are extensions of the universe. We are extensions of this unlimited power. So if we're an extension of it, all we have to do is look for it within us, and it becomes the thing we emanate. It becomes the things that we possess, right? But because we create everything, we create everything. So if we tell ourselves we can't, you can't. If you tell yourself you can, you can. And now, yes, sometimes it takes practice. Sometimes it takes busting those limiting beliefs. Sometimes it takes building a connection to your intuition so you can trust yourself. And sometimes it takes clarity, a detailed plan. I have a client who is a human design guide. And so she's always telling me about my human design. I don't know if you've heard of that, but I'm a manifester. I'm a manifesting generator. So for me, and for even a lot of my clients, and I work with different types of human design types, right? And what I have found is the more clarity, again, the clarity you don't have to be perfect on, but the more it's called you can call it like a life target outline or a career target outline. And basically it just helps you figure out what are your goals? What are your income goals, or what are this, what are that? How do you want to create your life? How many hours a week do you want to work? And what's realistic, right? So if you start to see, oh, I can only work this amount of hours, I want to make this amount of income, you start to see what's required to fill those gaps realistically, right? Because yes, manifestation, whatever. So I saw another picture. It says manifestation is not wishing and dreaming. It's deciding and acting. So what that means is you have to be clear on what you want. And people, I think, and I've had this experience where they say they want this, but they don't get clear on how they're going to get there because maybe they want something big. Maybe they want to make money they've never made before, or they want this or that, and they've never done it before. So they've got this little limitation or this little fear. It's not possible. So they avoid even making the clarity plan, the
Yep.
manifesto or the target outline, because they're afraid what they'll find out is what they're currently doing is never going to get them there. But I'll tell you, that is the key, right? If you break that down and you see where you are currently at is never going to get you to where you're going to be, wouldn't you want to know that
Yep.
I know, I would want to know, wow, actually where I'm at right now, what I have the capacity for is not realistically going to get me there. I need to put some things in place so I can get there, right? And
Yep.
that's what the plan does. That's what the clarity does. So it's, yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, no. One way that's come up for me, just kind of building the awareness, asking the questions. There'd be times when I will have come up with a plan,
Yeah,
and then I'll be scared to enact the plan
right,
because I don't have any other ideas. And so I'm like, if this doesn't work, I am screwed. And that's
yeah,
the thought that's
yeah,
going through my head. And so I'm scared. And so then I procrastinate. And
right,
ultimately that's rooted in a belief that I'm not confident
right,
enough in myself to figure it out. And so
right. Or
that's just
and here's what I'm going to say. Here's the piece that I'm going to say. The trust in the unknown to show you the best way, right? Because sometimes when we are connected to a divine being, or the divinity of the world and the divinity of ourselves, it will only reveal a piece of the puzzle. And we have to explore that piece of the puzzle before we get more information. So yeah, you might fail. What will happen in that failure is the lesson. You know what not to do, and you get closer to figuring out what to do.
yep,
That's the whole, you cannot become a master without first being a mess. You have to try the thing that you feel the thing you were inspired to try. You have to just kind of surrender to it, give it your best shot, and not be afraid of the failure, right? I had a client who had a shop for 2 years. She had a CBD shop for 2 years. She just paid for it, invested in it, never opened the doors because of this perfectionism and this fear of what if this one plan that I have gone all in and I've spent so much time and energy on doesn't work?
Yeah.
right? And so, of course, for the first year of our time together, we had to really, really work through all of that so she could just open the doors. And now she finally just let go of the perfectionism, stopped procrastinating the little things she needed to get done. She just opened the door while it wasn't perfect. And now she's making 5K months. You know what I mean? And it's just growing. And that's just in the first 4 months of opening. She's now getting regular traffic flow. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
quickly she is our, and it's just because we had to step out of our own way and be willing to fail, right? And so like that's a big piece of the work, is just finding a way to kind of be excited for your failures or your mistakes, right? And then of course, like I said, there's sometimes it's just you got to do it, and then sometimes you really do need to put things in place to keep you protected and safe, because sometimes they can be really real fears and anxieties that are holding you back, and you just won't show up because if you got a baby, you know, and you're potentially going to die if you show up and do your line of work for whatever reason, right? You've got to work through that. You've got to set things in place so you and your family are protected.
Yep. Yeah,
So
for sure. No, I love that. Yeah, it's just so, yeah, I just love that the answers are really, they're just in you, and you just got to get to
yeah.
know yourself, and you really can. Oh, and the other thing I was going to say, I like 2 points, 2 points. A, faith in the unknown. What really gets me is like when you get um, to this master manifester point, is
Mm-hmm.
the language we'll use right now. It's like you have it before you have it.
Right.
It's like I think it's so cool when people can go through the process knowing that they're good. They have the
Right.
result and they like
So
have
I'll
it
tell
by,
you, you want me to tell you the secret?
yeah, go for it.
Okay. The secret to having it before you have it is finding genuine contentment with where you are, right? So let's say you want the mansion. Let's say you want the dream car. Let's say you want the dream career, whatever. Where are you at currently? What house do you have currently? What car do you have currently? What job do you have currently? How can you find the reasons you are already living in this mansion, right? Let's say it's a freaking trailer and you want to live in a mansion, right? Why is the trailer already the mansion?
Yeah.
Right? Oh my God, it's keeping a roof over my head. Oh my God, it's protecting me from the weather. I have all the appliances that I could need. I have all the space that I can need for the stuff that I have the capacity for right now. Like I am in this mansion. It is such a beautiful home. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like that is how you have it right now, because now you're creating this feeling of I'm freaking wealthy. I have all this space. I have all these things. And now you've got it.
Yeah.
And now the space, the control of I have to have bigger, I have to have better is gone. And so now you're not like saying that you don't have it anymore, which is literally repelling the law of attraction from allowing it to come to you in the first place. You've already got it. You're living contently, genuinely contently with where you're at, and you're seeing why it's already yours. And then you're opening up that space for the law of attraction to just zip an opportunity. Literally, I've heard of these stories of people doing this, and like then they inherit something, or they come, you know what I mean, like they inherit the exact thing that they wanted, you know, because they stopped trying to control it, they stopped trying to hustle for it, they stopped trying to figure out what do I have to do, who do I have to be. And I mean, yes, there's a small portion of that, but I find that you figure out what you have to do, you figure out who you need to be by just finding a way to be it already with what you've already got, making what you already have, the blessings, the miracles that you already have work for you in your favor. And then it just becomes who you are. You don't have to figure it out. It just becomes these things.
Yeah.
Sense.
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense. And it kind of goes on this other point that I wanted to bring up is like you are already manifesting. Like
Already. Yep.
like you're already a pro at it too.
Already.
Maybe, but you're a pro at doing it at the level in which you're doing it to get the stuff that you're doing. And now you just need to understand the tools you're using on the daily, on like a subconscious, like automatic level, and
Right.
become more intentional about it. That's the other thing I really like. I was so skeptical of like the law of attraction and everything.
Yeah.
And then I realized, wait, but even the way I'm thinking, like the way I'm thinking aligns with the way
It's
my life is right now.
right. 100%.
And so I was like, how can I be skeptical? Because if I'm thinking that I can't be there, but it's like I'm not scared. So you talk to people, it's like, well, I would never apply for a $300,000 a year job. They would never accept me. But I'm okay applying for a $50,000 a year job. And then you get the $50,000 a year job, and you
Right.
find people discontent or whatever. But it's like that is literally the law of attraction. Like it
Literally.
just happened in your life and it happens every day. And that's what really convinced me when I had that
Yeah,
revelation.
right.
So
That's a great point. No, and I talk about that a lot in like different content that I make is like, you're already manifesting the life, like, and I love that you made this point because I feel like that's definitely a huge piece of content, like right there, just like a blog post or something.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
love it.
absolutely. Well, cool. Let's go ahead and jump into. So we got dreams and goals right now of place a mirror in front of people and show them that they don't have to settle for their circumstances, show people their limitless potential. Is there anything else you want to add to that, or do you want to move through the rest of the show?
Yeah, we can move forward. I feel like people are getting the gist. Hopefully they're getting some value.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, what are the top 1 to 2 skills that you feel you need to develop right now to, be able to better show people their limitless potential or move towards?
So, th- the things that I believe I'm an expert in, the only way I can reach my fullest potential is just to continue to do the things that I
Yep.
need to do. So like again, those three, you said for two, but like those three skills of just like what realistic clarity that I can have so that I, am being honest with myself about like, is it possible to make the amount of money that I say I want to make, right? Like if I want $25,000 a month, what goes into that? Like how much time and effort and energy and what do I need? Like, right. So it's like, if I have to have 20 clients to make that amount of money, is that realistic? Can I really sign 20 clients? And if I could sign 20 clients, can I take that on? Right. Like, no,
Yeah.
no, it's just not. So like, what are the little things that I have to work on filling the gap? So that clarity is just making sure that I'm not setting goals and not being clear and realistic about my process for getting there. Because yes, I can do the 25K months, 100K months. It doesn't matter what I want. I can do them, but without realistically understanding, like I can't just sit here and be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to make this with 3 clients unless I'm going to charge X amount of money. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, and then does my nervous system feel okay with charging $50,000 per person to work? You know what I mean? Like just
Yep.
different things like this. You have to work through what's realistic. And then the surrender and the limitations, right? Those things like allowing myself to just be guided, allowing myself to just be shown the way. And then as fears come up, what do I need to do to overcome them? Is there something I need to put in place? Is it something I can just give to the universe or God and show me how to overcome it? Or is it something like I really need to take action on this to make sure that I keep myself safe, right? So it's just constantly doing this. Like I know it's so funny, like even though like this is the work that I do, I still have to do it for myself. So I just recently manifested my dream car. So now it's like, yes, I got this. And I'm like doing all the things I need to do to show my appreciation and living in it. But that's not the only thing I want to work on, right? Like I want to work on improving my health and like, I want to like, I want to be like, really fit. It's like just different things. And so, but I haven't figured that out up to this point to manifest that yet. So like I realized like, oh, well, I need to go on a diet or I need to do this or I need to work out 7 million days a week. And then I realized I'm trying to control it instead of just letting myself be guided to it without making sacrifices of the foods that I want to eat, without working out 7 hours a day, like in sacrificing my time or my body, like and my exhaustion levels. Like I literally want to figure out how to manifest, I am figuring out how to manifest my body so that I can eat whatever I want, whenever I want, do it. Cause that's kind of my thing is like, do it without sacrifice. So why do I have to sacrifice carbs to get my dream body? Why do I have to sacrifice my time and energy to get my dream body? I don't believe that's true. I believe like the universe will kind of guide me to the way, will help me. If I just say like I already have my dream body, it will help me become, it will just become, right? It's like that same, I have to constantly practice it for every little goal that I set. I have to first I go through the things that I tell people not to do, right? Like so for me to continue, I just have to continue to realize, hey, I'm doing the thing that I know is not going to work, and I just have to wake up and then step back and do my own foundation work, right?
Yeah.
So to continue to get me to where I want to be, I just have to continue being willing to humbly accept that I'm not perfect. I won't always have it figured out, because that's what's going to create the space for me to be like, hey, I'm doing the thing I'm not supposed to do. Let's rewind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, because if I was like, nope, I'm perfect, I have it all figured out, anytime I hit a roadblock, I wouldn't really have that space to be like, am I doing something wrong here? So that I could get my stuff back on track. Right. Like, so it's those things. It's that skill of just humbleness and just to know there's always more to learn. There's always more to fail at. There's always more, like just being okay with no matter if I'm at level Tony Robbins, I can still fail. I still have things to evolve. It's that skill of just, I'm like, I might have God presence inside of me, but I'm not perfect. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even really believe like God is necessarily perfect. You know what I mean? Or the universe. Like, it's just, we're all just figuring things out. There's always something to learn. It's infinite, right? Like, if it never ends, then that means there's more to learn. There's more to discover, even for the universe.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just how I feel.
I feel that. I feel that. Have you ever heard of Alex Hormozy?
No.
No.
Maybe. I'm not like it.
No, you don't have
I
to. He's not that big time, but
okay.
he's been a rising star in the entrepreneurial social media space.
Really?
I hope he doesn't hear that I say he's not that big time because I think he's a beast. But
He's not that big time yet.
yeah, no, I think he's really big time. I think he's going to
Yeah.
be huge, but he's just in
Yeah.
that letting it compound stage.
Right. He's
And
building.
yeah, he has this video that talks about how to have your dream body by eating anything you want.
Yeah. I
And so
love it.
I figured I'd send it to you or
Yeah, send
tell you
it to
about
me because you know what's so funny? Like right before we got on this call, like this is something I've been like, this is something I've been talking with the universe about for a while, but then I'll go into that like process of just surrender, being guided, doing whatever I want, and then something happens and I go right back into old patterns or whatever. And I'll be like, nope, I got to go back on the diet. I got to cut the carbs. I got to do this. I got to do that or whatever. And then like that lasts for like a week. And I'm like, I'm doing the thing again. I'm doing the thing like that I said I wasn't going to do again. And then
Yeah.
I have to go back, so it's always, but that's, you've got to fail over and over and over again before you reach success. And so today I was like, I'm going to look on YouTube and see if anybody else has figured this out. I'm sure that I'm not the only one thinking about this.
Oh yeah, he's absolutely yoked, and his wife is also really fit, and their motto is to never skip dessert. And
Yeah, right. Like I'm like sitting here like, how do I really want my life to look? I'm like, I want to just eat whatever I'm craving. I want to be able to like have a sweet at the end of the day if I want it. Like I don't want to think, I don't even want to think about what I'm eating or how I'm eating.
yeah,
Right. Like, cause I'm trying to control, oh, I have to bless my food. Oh, I have to chew it 30 times. Oh, I have to do all the things. Right. And I'm sitting here like, and I'm sitting here thinking I'm getting sad, right? Like when I'm thinking about all this control, like, well, what about when I'm with my boyfriend and I just want to watch TV and eat my food, or have a conversation with him, and I'm not being present with my food. So now I've quickly eaten or whatever's happened, and now I'm screwed, right? I didn't follow the rules. I didn't follow the plan. And you know what I mean? Like I don't want to
yep,
be in that. I didn't want to have a bunch of rules and regulations and just those things. I've for a while, I'm just like, I don't know how yet, but I am going to get the body of my dreams by complete freedom. And so like that's kind of like my current manifesting thing that I'm working on. So it's so funny that you're like, I have a video. Like where it meant, see, when you just surrender, the
yeah,
universe is like, hey, here's a bone.
yep,
Here's information. Here's what you need. And right, like here it
yeah.
is.
There we go.
Manifestation in action, people.
Literally, a great masterclass on it right here. Well, cool. So I'll send you that video after, but what are the highest impact daily actions that are going to tick the needle forward towards your dreams and goals for you? Is there like you sit down for 30 minutes to get clarity, or how does that clarity, surrender, uncovering those limitations, what does that look like on a daily basis? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So for me, I love that you're asking this, like for me specifically, but I want to preface right now that what I do is a lifestyle that I created because I love the way these things make me feel.
Mm-hmm.
I have learned enough about myself to create the routines and rituals that I have because they bring me joy. I don't feel like everything that I do. I don't know if you hear about this sometimes in books or just in general meditation or rituals or these things. I've heard people say they feel like a chore sometimes and whatnot. I have created my own rituals and routines where none of this feels like a chore. Like I wake up and I work out. And while I work out, I manifest. Like I create my content, or I think about how I want to show up or what I want to attract, right? Like, so I just, and I have no routine. I have no, like, I have to make a piece of content today. Like I will get up and I work out because that's what I want to do when I first wake up, right? Not because like I forced myself into it, but because I like the way I feel when I work out. Like I love that. I love being all sweaty and wanting to take like a cold shower. Like it's just, it feels good. And then I feel like ready to start my day and all the things, right? So I, I don't want to sit here and say, Timmy, you need to work out every morning in order to get divine inspiration and then go take a cold shower to prepare for you. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
these are things that because I used to make these schedules. I used to make these, again, that this just trying to control it at 5 a.m. I'm going to do this, at 6 a.m. I'm going to do this, and blah, blah, blah. I let that go. I let it go. And all the things that I would used to try to schedule, the things that were meant for me the most, that were going to step me into my highest potential, they just started automatically happening.
Yeah.
And so I work out, right? Like, so what my main point is, like, I can tell you guys what I do every day. I have I say certain mantras, I pray, I do these certain things every day, every morning, every night, but I do it in a way where it's like, okay, I want to connect to the universe right now. So I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, I follow these cravings. Like, oh, I want to work. Like I had a choice this morning. Like I went to bed late. So I was like, I've got to interview early. Like really want to work out? And I'm like, I know I'm going to feel better if I work out. So I worked out, right? It wasn't like I have to do this or I suck. It was like, or I'm not going to connect to the universe today or surrender or whatever. Like, it was just like, I know it's going to make me feel better. So I did it. It was
Yeah.
just the choice, right? So I recommend for anybody, like that's what I'm always going to do. So in a month, you could ask me and I might be doing something different, but this is what I've been doing for a while. Like I'll do my morning rituals, I'll do my evening rituals. And then of course, like the work that I do, right now I'm connected to the universe. You know what I mean? When I'm on, I don't have a script or anything. This is divine flow, just coming through. So it's like, I've created a life to where I'm just maintaining the kind of things that I want, that I believe in, the kind of things that I love. Right. So
Yep.
those are the things that are pushing me to where I'm meant to be. Right. And it's like, right now, I believe I'm supposed to be on TV or I'm supposed to do this. Right. It's like, but that could change. And I'm fine with that bigger picture changing as I do the things, like as I apply for speaking roles or as I apply for these things. If it doesn't work out and the universe shows me something else, I'm cool with that too.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just going, like you said, you just, sometimes you have an idea, maybe that won't work out. You've got to not kind of care.
Yeah.
You got to not care just a little bit and just be excited for the adventure of whatever that desire is going to teach you, because it's either a lesson or a blessing. And either way, lessons are blessings, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I hope that answered your question. But the main thing is just like, what do you want to do? And then what are the little things you can do each day to make your a client? I used to, when I first started, I used to be like, okay, you have to do this at 6 a.m. You have to do this, blah, 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 blah. I don't do that anymore. I do not do that anymore. I teach them how to create their own schedule, right?
Yeah.
Like I teach them like, okay, well, and then of course, if they have no idea, right? Like let's say they've never connected to the vine or whatever, what I'll do is I'll give them practices like chakra healing or something. I'll give them practices just so they can get a taste of the experience, or I'll guide them through it myself and then like see how that lands for them. And then I'll be like, okay, here's a regimen, right? Here's a ritual, here's a routine. Do this and let it evolve. To
Yeah.
keep what resonates, keep what you love the most, and let the rest kind of fall off, right? So it's like I do give them like pieces, but for the most part, I want them to just let it be created.
Yep. Yep. I gotcha. And I think something I really want to pull out of what you were just saying was the grace that you had with yourself in the process. Because I think earlier we talked about that awareness, that understanding, and then when you get awareness and understanding and you like put them together, I really feel like, and that curiosity as well,
Yeah.
that can only come from a position, like a heart state of like, I'm going to have grace towards myself in this moment. Because like when you start judging yourself, it's hard to be curious, because anytime you are honest with yourself, you're going to be mean to yourself about that honesty. And
Right.
so I think grace has just been a big part in my life, and it's what has allowed me to like all those regimented routines and the disciplines. It's like consistency is important for sure,
Right.
but
Right.
you need to allow yourself to make sure you can show up consistently. Like, don't force yourself to be
Right. If
consistent.
you're forcing it, or like, and here's the thing, I've gone through periods that my routine and rituals and way of connecting and way of allowing myself to be this has evolved. You know, when I was first doing this, it didn't feel like a chore to me. I woke up 4:45 on the dot, meditated for like 2 hours. Like, it didn't feel like a chore. It was just what I wanted to do. I loved the way it made me feel. But then eventually that kind of went away. That kind of stopped. And then like I hadn't found my new way. I hadn't found like the thing that I wanted to do. So for a
Yep.
while I was trying to force myself to do the thing.
Yep.
But sometimes those things are not the thing anymore. And you've got, like you said, you've got to give yourself grace to be like, okay, well, I'm not going to try to make what last year Heather needed work. I'm going to see what Heather now needs and just figure that out and like follow my cravings. It's just like what I was saying for the body, right? The weight loss or whatever, right? Like you follow those cravings, right?
Yep.
You don't try to force the diet or the exercise. You just, what are you craving? Do you really want to eat? Do you really want it?
Yeah.
Take it. Do it. Do what makes you feel good. What's going to make you feel good, right? So like I don't know. It's just I think it all mirrors each other, whether it's weight loss, relationship, right? Like, do you feel like going on the date? Do you want someone around you all the time? How do you want your relationships to look, right? Like, you gotta, the more you know that, and the more you stop trying to play by Pinterest's playbook or somebody like Heather's playbook, right? My playbook's not going to work for Timmy.
Yeah.
That's why, like, as a mentor for myself, I don't give playbooks. I teach you how to create your own. That's the thing. That's like I help you step into that unlimitless, like, this is what I want, right? Like, because I know for me, that's what I was doing is like, oh, I'm going to Google it or I'm going to Pinterest it and I'm going to follow the meal plan or I'm going to follow this thing or whatever. Create your own. Create your own. And that's what's going to get you there the quickest. It's going to make you enjoyable. You're going to feel present with it, right? And again, I don't mean like there's a fine line between I'm forcing myself to do this or it's a little uncomfortable for me to change my habits.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There's a fine line between, you've got to face some uncomfortability. It's going to be sometimes a little bit uncomfortable to do things you've never done before in the very beginning. But the consistency comes from, I talk a lot about soul aligned discipline.
Yeah.
You become soul aligned discipline when you are doing the things consistently that you crave to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, your limiting beliefs or the things you believe about your world, that law of attraction, the more you uncover those, the more you're going to crave the personal development, the more you're going to crave the things that are actually going to move you to the success or to the dream, right? So the more you align yourself to the dream, the easier it is to be disciplined and consistent to get the dream.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's all internal. So that's another reason why, like, before I even try to recommend a regimen or whatever for somebody, we got to uncover the limitations that are preventing them from already being aligned to the life that they want to live.
Yep.
So we align, and then I was watching a show. This is just a side point. I was watching a show like the Hoarders show on Netflix, and there's a psychologist, and she's like, I'm a hoarder expert, right? Like I help hoarding disorder. And this girl literally admitted, like, the reason people hoard is because of grief, loss, trauma, all these things, right? Like that are holding them back. They throw those hoarders into the ring of fire and they're like, okay, you got to make quick decisions right now. We've got 3 days to get through this house. And then this hoarder is like losing their mind and I'm getting mad. I'm like, why don't you do the work
Yeah.
to help her make those decisions? Why don't you work her through those
Yep.
limitations or that pain so she could easily make those decisions and get it done in 3 days, right? Why wouldn't you do that? Are you a psychologist? What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? And I'm like, how did you get a TV show? This should not, this is painful for me to watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my boyfriend's like, you need to react to this on YouTube.
You could react to that on YouTube. That'd be fun. I love it. Well, cool. That's all we really got for you. We have a couple more questions we usually run through, but we're bumping against that hour mark. Is there
I know I
anything
got a lot to
else?
say. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I think we really touched on a lot of the other questions anyway, just in our natural conversation. So is there anything else that you want to chat about before we sign off?
No, I think that this is good. Now I do know one of the questions that you asked was what my favorite like book or podcast was, and I
Yep.
did want to mention that um, because especially for people who may be intrigued or skeptical, anything to do with The Secret. So there are documentaries, there are books and it's called The Secret by Rhonda Bryan.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've seen them, Timmy, but I definitely recommend watching those documentaries, reading those books, because it talks a lot about the law of attraction. It talks a lot about creating what you want right now, finding a way to be there right now and step into like it's already yours. And like those, and then the books talk a lot about the emotional awareness that you need to have and like how to surrender to that unknown so that you can get there. So I wanted to share those books because those books were pivotal in like the journey for me and getting me to where I am today. And so if you're
Yeah.
just beginning, I think those are good books to start with.
How many books are there in that series? I've watched the movie, but I haven't read the books.
I think there's at least 3 books, and then there's the one documentary, and then there's a movie. So there's actually like an like a romance movie. So, but it depicts. I can't remember what the movie's called, but if you look up The Secret, like they have the documentary where they're like talking to these like people that are like billionaires and how they created billions and success
Yep.
with the law of attraction. But then there's just a romance movie, and it's showing this story of this man who has figured the secret out and just kind of lives his life by this. But then there's this woman who is living that victim mentality. Oh, everything's out to get me, blah, blah, blah. Like the world, like, oh, the roof collapses on her house and all the other things. And he's just like, I can fix it. Like he's just like, he's so laid back. And it's just this depiction of what life looks like to the person who is seeing it clearly versus the person who's living in that limitation or that
Yeah.
control or that victim mentality. And it's just, and then he teaches her that, and then their life is just beautiful. And it's a really good movie. So like it's got the entertainment and it's got the education, like with the documentary or the entertainment. So either way, you get the picture of like what it really means. I'm like, I know I'm crying like a baby when I'm watching because I'm like, I know what this feels like. I know this. I know what it's saying. Like I just feel it so deeply in my heart.
Yeah. 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 I love it. Well, awesome. Heather, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I can't wait to share this with other people because this was great. Perfect.
Yeah, yeah, no, I loved it. It was great too. I'm excited to upload it. If you guys are listening to this and you loved what Heather had to say, where should they contact you, Heather?
So the best places to contact me, like to get into my personal space, my Facebook. So facebook.com/holistic healer Heather. You can send me a friend request. You can message me, follow me, whatever. I've got a private Facebook group where I stay connected to my audience personally. And then of course my email list. Once you join the group and get on there, that's the easiest way to like get onto my emails and know everything. And then if you just want more educational content, I'm currently building my YouTube channel. So my YouTube channel is also Holistic Healer Heather. So that's in the works. I'm weekly uploading different short form. Well, they're not short, but like they're like 10-15 minute videos of just talking about going in depth on different conversations or topics, like some of the ones that we talked about today. So YouTube and Facebook are the best places to learn more or be connected with me personally.
There we go. Well, awesome. All those links will be down in the show notes for you guys. We appreciate you watching the show, and we will see you on the next one. On that note, we're out.